I wanted to take part in this project because I've always been interested in my family history, and I thought taking part in the project was a good reason to do my DNA test. At first, when I found out my DNA results, I was a little bit disappointed because I was hoping for something a little bit more exotic, and then I realised that my higher percent of English was actually a closer connection to my father's side, and that made a difference in how I felt about it. Like I say, at first I was a little bit disappointed about the DNA results, and then my whole point of view changed because my dad passed away when I was 16, so having a stronger part of my dad made me feel very close to him in a strange way, so that was really how it's impacted me. I've really enjoyed taking part in the project. I've been able to meet some incredible people and had some incredible experiences. It's also brought out a confidence in me that I think had dimmed a little bit. So I'm really, really glad I have taken part.
So I became involved in the Ancestories project because my wife, Fiona, who is also involved in the project, had got links to the Lost Boys and Derby Creative Network. And the invite came via her, and I just thought post-pandemic it would be just a nice thing to do, to get out, meet some new people, do something different, and also do something creative rather than, I don't generally do creative things. It's generally work or sort of leisure activities, but nothing creative. So it was just a nice opportunity to get back to that. I wasn't totally surprised by my DNA results, apart from there was one element of it where I was 15% Iberian, which when you look at the other ones, I was 15% English, Welsh and Scottish, which is quite a common thing to have. But I was surprised that the Iberian bit was so large, but it makes you wonder what kind of where I've come from and the heritage and the people that have been involved in my ancestors, really. But so that was the only thing that kind of was interesting. I don't think it surprised me because I expected it to be quite an interesting mix. So yeah, definitely that was the most surprising. I'm not sure the results have changed how I see myself. I think because of the project that I did as a result of it, which was based around photography and my kids and replicating scenes and places where my ancestors had been photographed, I think that was quite nice to reconnect to family long gone, and in some cases 20, 30 years ago, which I kind of you think about now and again, but it was actually quite nice to actually trace where people used to live and where people stood, and just to find that the buildings were still there and things really hadn't changed in the background. It's just the people that were changing. So I think that was probably the most enjoyable bit of it. Yeah, and really quite nice just to go back and look at things, really. So I really enjoyed working on the project as a whole. I enjoyed the creative element that Paul brought to it. And I did some things that I probably wouldn't have done, fight scenes and things like that, which weren't something I've ever done in the past. So it was really good, and it was just nice to kind of do something creative. I kind of mentioned that, it was one of the reasons I got involved with it. But what was really good, if there were elements of it where I didn't feel that comfortable with performance and things like that, but that was absolutely no problem. It was kind of, I dictated what I wanted to do and wanted to get involved in. But then there were a couple of things that I was encouraged to do, which I probably went further than I would, fight scenes and things like that. It's a classic example. I wouldn't normally do that sort of thing, but it was good fun. So yeah, that's kind of that's how that sort of panned out, really. I would summarize the project in a sentence by saying meeting new people and having new experiences, but being able to look back in the past into my family. And it's a really nice combination to look forward and look backwards as well, really. And I met some really interesting people. I have to say that's probably one of the most positive things about it. The group of people that we work with were very diverse, different ages, different ethnicities, different backgrounds. And it was really nice how everybody just kind of got on, because the common creative thread that ran through the project enabled us to all have something in common. I would absolutely recommend taking part in a project like this if you were given the opportunity to do so. And yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm sure anybody, regardless of their personality type, whether they're outgoing or introvert or creative or not, would certainly get something out of the project, and I'm sure enjoy it as much as we have.
Okay, so I'll start with this one. So the reason that I got involved with the project is because mainly I've worked with the Lost Boys many, many times in the past, and heard about the project, and it just sounded really, really interesting. I'd never been particularly that interested in my DNA or my heritage, but you hadn't you, actually? So that's why but I also then had to drag James along, because I don't do anything without my other half. So why did you want to do it, James?
Because you made me do it. Literally, because you went, I'm doing this thing on Thursday, you come in, and I was like, yeah, all right then. You know, I didn't know where that was going to lead. I didn't know it was going to be like a year. It was just literally, you came into the lounge one day and went, I'm going to start doing this thing on Thursday, you're coming with me. There were some surprises in my DNA results. Some of it was kind of expected. The Celtic side I always knew, because my mother's side is very, very Welsh. But the the kind of the Scandinavian side was pretty unexpected. I was always told that our family was fundamentally French, so that's what I expected the DNA to show. So when it kind of showed this Nordic heritage, I mean, it was a very very exciting and welcome surprise, to be honest. So yeah, that was definitely a surprise for me.
I think for me, there weren't really any surprises. I think it was just, we'd always had a story in our family about my father's background, because he was adopted. And it was always a story that we never knew whether was true or just something that had been told. And what was really nice was that although the heritage didn't absolutely categorically confirm it, it really did point in that direction, that the story actually probably was true. And that was really quite nice, actually.
Okay, excellent. So have the DNA results kind of changed how you see yourself at all?
In my case, yeah.
Because you see yourself as a Viking now.
Yeah, that's why the beard's growing. I've started going out raiding villages at the weekend. No, it has. I mean, it's been. What's been nice is it's been the catalyst for me to do a lot more research into that side of the family, which I wouldn't have done previously. And yeah, that I think it has. I wouldn't say it's enormously changed me, but certainly it's changed the way I think about my heritage, and it's something I'm quite a lot more proud of now than I was before, I think, given kind of the research that I did off the back of the project.
Yeah, and I think for me, I don't know if I don't think it's changed me a lot. I think the biggest change has been the fact that by finding out I had a lot of different areas of heritage in my DNA, it made me look into those heritages and find out more about people from other backgrounds, which was just interesting to see where, you know, if I have Polish in my DNA, what part of my personality that might.
Okay, so kind of how was your sort of overall experience with working on the project and kind of working with Paul specifically as well?
I think this is the biggest change, probably for both of us, and I'll let James explain his bit. I don't think we expected to enjoy the project anywhere near as much as we did. It was kind of one of those where we thought, nah, we've got nothing better to do on a Thursday night, you know, it could be all right, you know, it's something to do. And it was absolutely amazing. And we got to the point where we just, you know, we looked forward to going every week. We couldn't wait to see what we were going to explore that week. We explored crafts and exercises and all sorts of things that we would never have done otherwise, as well as meeting some people that we never would have met. The whole experience was absolutely amazing, and Paul made it, because of Paul's sense of humor, everything was just delivered with just so much fun and energy. They made every Thursday night just feel like a night out with friends, but then with this wonderful learning as we kind of went along, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, Kirsty will tell you, before I started this, I wasn't, you know, really interested in any of this kind of arty-farty nonsense. But it's been, I mean, and you know, when this is finished, every video of this is going to be basically me going, oh, it was life-changing. But it genuinely was. You know, I mean, the whole experience has been incredible. I've learned so much. I mean, not just in terms of kind of new skills and just new interests, but also a lot about myself personally. You know, I've learned that there is the soft heart of an artist deep within this cold, stony ground. But yeah, it's been a genuinely transformative experience. And you know, Paul's been great. He's clearly been very passionate about this project, and that's been really nice to see. You know, and it's been nice to see the group grow as a core group. And again, you know, that's all been kind of around Paul and his motivation. He's sometimes occasionally quite scary motivation. Yeah, it's been a genuinely amazing experience.
Fantastic. So you kind of hinted at, so you'd say that the project kind of has changed you and impacted you kind of positively on almost on a legacy moving forward from it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like I say, I mean, it's opened up interest for me that I've continued to carry forward from the project. Particularly, you know, the things that I did for the exhibition, and kind of the medium I was working with there. I've continued to do that. You know, and the mask making stuff was really good. Yeah, and you know, I'm still in touch with, which, you know, I would expect to be, but you know, in touch with people from the group, and we're organizing things based on the work that we did within the project. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I have been and intend to carry a lot of that forward now.
I think that the legacy for me has been about the group of people that we came together with were such a diverse group of people, and learning so much about people from different backgrounds, different countries, their reasons for being in our country, types of people that I would never have had the opportunity to have those kinds of conversations with, and those kinds of deep understandings of. That's again almost quite life-changing to really get to know people with such different backgrounds to us. Yeah, is an amazing experience and an amazing opportunity.
Okay, excellent. So if the project was to run again, would you recommend it to friends, enemies, anyone you know? If it was to run again, would you? Yeah, what would you say, and would you recommend it?
If by not recommending it, it would mean that we could do it again, then I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. But genuinely, I would recommend it to anyone. I think you can get so much out of it, from the DNA side and learning a lot about yourself and your personal heritage, but just the interactions with other people, learning different art forms. Just everything about the whole experience has just made it genuinely a wonderful project to be involved in, and a very worthwhile one. So I'd recommend it to anyone on so many different levels. What about you? Would you?
I absolutely would. I mean, you know, I would say to people, you know, you take somebody like me who had the kind of the cultural depth of a street puddle, and I've done this, and it's kind of really broadened my horizons out. And you know, like I said, when you kind of came to me and spoke to me about it, I just kind of did it because I didn't want you to have an adventure on your own, but it's turned into something that's been genuinely genuinely life-changing, you know, and I would recommend that I would recommend to people, you know, based on that, you know, you can come away from this a different person, and that's huge. It's absolutely enormous.
And with a new group of really cool friends as well, which is another thing that we've walked away with, which is amazing.
Yeah, and they've walked away with us. So.
Okay, so what drew me to the project in the first place, I think, was that it just sounded quite interesting to look into my DNA, but also because my background is performance, which is something I hadn't done for a long time. I was really interested in that side of things, and because I've now progressed to doing artwork, the exhibition was also really interesting to me. My DNA results, they were, I guess, what I expected to some degree. I had majority English, and then Irish, Scottish and and also Scandinavian, which was sort of expected, but it was still a nice result. I would have liked something more exotic, but yeah, I was quite pleased with them. I was really pleased with the English, because it kind of showed areas up that I wasn't expecting, with sort of South Africa and Australia. I had America in there, but I did expect that with my surname, so there was a level of expectancy there. I'm not sure that the DNA results have changed the way I see myself, just given me a bit more information about my heritage, I guess. I don't think they've sort of impacted me too much. It's, like I said, it's nice to have the Scandinavian in there. That's interesting. But yeah, I'm not sure there's been a massive impact in that respect. The project's been really interesting for me. As I said, performance was in my background, but then I became poorly and I sort of lost all of that side of myself. So I think it's been really good to come back to some level of performance again, and to be encouraged to sing again. That's always been a kind of a nemesis for me. So yeah, I'm encouraged. You know, I've been encouraged to take up that side of myself again. So that's kind of good. It's been a great experience, in as much as I've been working with really nice people who have been encouraging and who are really nice to work with. So yeah, it's just been an all-round a good experience and something a little bit different.
I became involved in the project because I had previously worked with the Lost Boys on a project before, which was to do with acting skills and techniques for theatre, etc. And I believe in engaging in community projects because I think it helps you to meet new people. I think it's important to make these things successful, because we need culture and we need arts. So I've always kind of engaged in arts community projects as best I can. So that's why.
Okay, excellent. Were you surprised by your DNA results?
Yes, I was. I was very surprised. So I was very surprised by my DNA results because I had expected to be half English, half Irish, and probably a bit of Scandinavian thrown in, like we probably all expect. But I had much more of a smattering of other things that did surprise me. So, for example, my dad was English and my mum was Irish, but nearly all my DNA was Irish. So that surprised me, and actually had a bit of a crisis of confidence for the first couple of weeks after the results came in, and then I was like, hang on a minute, this is not how DNA works. And obviously just my dad was more of a Celt than he probably realised as well. So yeah, that surprised me. And there's some West Asian, so I can understand why there might be a bit of Italian. I can understand why there might be a bit of, why there's some Scandinavian things in there, but I was really surprised about West Asia, how that got in to my DNA. So yeah, that was intriguing, that one. So the DNA results didn't necessarily change how I see myself. I think I quite liked the fact that it showed that I was 98.4% Irish. There was something quite, I don't know, quite warm about that. I liked my Irish heritage very much, and I find the Irish heritage to be something that I do feel very, very familiar with. So I don't think apart from that little crisis of confidence at the beginning when I was like, oh, or it was an identity crisis, really, is what it was. But apart from that little bit, when I was like trying to figure it out, then no, I think it just kind of consolidated really who I am. Although, like I said before, this bit of West Asian was like, what is that, and who did that come from, and when, and how, and where? So yeah, but no, I think in terms of how I see myself, it kind of made me feel more akin to the Irish culture and the Irish nation, which I think was quite nice actually. Working on the project was really good because, again, so I like learning full stop, but when you sort of learn things that you would perhaps never ever normally be part of. So when we did fighting from different cultures and that sort of thing, fighting skills, that was quite an interesting thing to suddenly start learning. And I would never normally ever come across that kind of skills, those kind of skills. I think working on the project at first, I think it took us a bit of a while. So when we were working out our identity and looking into ourselves and our past and so on, that was really interesting to think about yourself and to probably be a bit self-indulgent actually about yourself, which we don't normally do. I think when we started to work towards the actual performance piece, we were probably a little bit confused at times. There were only a couple of us who'd ever really done any kind of performance before. But I think once we kind of took hold of, right, this is down to us, we've got to put this performance together and Paul will help to shape it, but it's up to us to make sure that the content is there. I think once we'd got that and then we got a bit of a sort of a concept for it, it then all really came together. Working with Paul was great. He taught us a lot about how to perform. He made us think quite deeply. He didn't take anything that wasn't good enough. So he kind of pushed everybody out of their comfort zone, but pushed everybody to make sure that what they were doing was really good. And he would be quite honest if it wasn't and make us do it again or help us to reshape it so that it did become better. So it was good. It was good to learn skills. It was good to learn ways of doing things. And it was good to think more deeply about what we were doing and why. The experience in a sentence or two would be an intriguing, weird, and motivating way to go down your own story trails, to understand yourself, but also, because we were working with other people, to get insight into them as well, into their backgrounds. Yeah, that would be it.
Would you recommend the experience to anybody else?
Yes, absolutely, definitely. It's been a brilliant experience. Being able to meet people that we probably wouldn't normally meet, learning more about other people's cultures, about other people's the arts and ways of being and storytelling, those sorts of things. I would absolutely recommend it to other people if they're kind of willing to lose some of what they thought they were in order to take on who they actually are.
Firstly, how did you become involved in the project and what were your kind of reasons behind it?
So I think we got involved because one of the other people in the project hoodwinked us into doing it. I think we were drunk at the time. So I think, I think that was how it worked.
Some alcohol was definitely involved.
Yeah, I think so.
Lots of persuasion.
But but I think in the end, we were extremely glad that we did it. It was great fun.
For me, the hook was the exhibition, I have to say. So I really liked that aspect of it, and I was just curious, really.
And for me, I think it was just something that was something completely outside of my experience and comfort zone. And would I have done it without being cajoled into it? I don't know whether I would, but the fact that we did do it in the end, I really quite enjoyed it.
Excellent. Okay, so were you surprised by your DNA results at all?
Well, being surprised by the DNA results is it's a bit difficult for us, because we had done 2 years previous, we had already done a DNA test. So we had a vague idea. So it wasn't a total shock, like for some people, I have to say. I mean, there were definitely, from the results, just taking the results, there was definitely, the one big surprise for me was the Middle East, and I still don't know where it comes from. And I'm dead chuffed with it, because it's diverse and different, and I really like the different parts. And we did my dad's as well before he passed away, so I can piece a little bit together through that. And so that was really nice, and a really, yes, so that was good. That was fun
for me. So the history that I'd had from my sister and mum and dad and whatever was that we had some Scottish background, but that didn't show up at all. So then I had no idea where my short legs came from. But in the end, we worked out it was because there was a bit of Italian in there. So yeah, that was where that came from. But it's funny how things I was more or less, the whole part of me is English, and more English. The fact it was completely the northwest of England, so quite spotted
Specific.
Right in that place. So that was quite interesting. Obviously, having little short legs, we didn't wander very far. I think that's what happened.
So, did your kind of DNA results, obviously from 2 years or this time, did they kind of change how you saw yourself at all?
Did it change how I saw it? Not really, no. I don't think as a whole. I think it's a nice little talking point. And obviously I'm quite pleased that it was a bit more diverse than 98% one country.
I think, yeah, it wasn't a surprise that there was a lot of English. I think the thing that was interesting was the reaction of other people within the group to what their results were, and the surprise. Some obviously had surprises, and the reaction there was quite interesting. But our joint, really, because we'd already done it, I think there wasn't going to be any surprises. It would have been a surprise if it was a completely different result. That would have been interesting. But it wasn't.
Well, working on the project as a whole, for me, was a totally different experience, because I've never done any theatre or theatrical stuff or performance-wise, so that was totally out of my comfort zone.
I think it was the same for me as well.
And yeah. I didn't really know what to expect, but I don't think I quite expected it to that extent. And I'm so thrilled that I was able to experience it and kind of get myself through it. And I think I really quite grew a little bit through it, because it was just so different and opened up what I can do, really, that I can do a little bit more what I expected from myself. And I was absolutely adamant when I started the project, I was not going to perform at all. It's just not me whatsoever. And well, as you know, I did end up performing, and it was a really big thing for me, and it was a really big confidence boost for me. And looking back on it, I loved it. I probably wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't go that far, because there were a lot of nerves involved, but I'm so proud of it. And I still use it today as a, if you manage to stand in front of so and so many people alone on a stage and speak, then you can do this and you can do that. So I do use it as a confident, yeah, I'm really proud of it. And I think Paul managed that very, very well. He never pushed me into it. I think if I would have been pushed in any way, I definitely wouldn't have done it. So it was a very, very soft approach, and I felt really supported, and I felt supported by the group, and that made a big difference to me, definitely. So in that respect, brilliant. I think he was really great leading the project. I think it was all really nice and diverse, good fun. Sometimes I was missing a little bit in German you would call it the red string running through it all, that connects it all together. I think that might have been a little bit lost at times because it was just over such a long time. For me, it would have been nice to spend a little more time on the performance. I felt that was all very rushed. But then I am somebody who would like to practice something 152,000 times before. So I don't know, but yeah, I think having to spend a little bit more time on the performance when we knew that we had to do it would have been helpful. But yeah, I loved it. It was definitely all very diverse and very different aspects. Just sometimes putting them together. Oh God, and I loved the masks. That was my absolute favourite.
Yeah, I think for me, completely out of my comfort zone, because the reason I became an engineer was because I was good at sums, not good at writing or thinking that sort of way. So it forced me to do something that I would never really do, and I did find that quite cathartic in a way. I think for the performance, I really wanted to enjoy it, and I do think I should have actually practiced a little bit more beforehand. But having said that, I did enjoy it, and I thought that it was interesting the way it actually came together, because I didn't really plan it right the way through, but when the pressure came on, something came into my head, and Paul had actually talked about that's the sort of thing that can happen. So it was quite nice. So, for Paul himself, I thought, as Steffi has said, I thought he led it very well. Perhaps we would have liked a bit more direction in the end. He did say that he was leaving it to us, but I think it was a bit rushed. I do understand that the original concept wasn't to have a performance, so that may have been part of it. But in the end, it was a relief when we finished. Did I enjoy it during it? Perhaps not, but afterwards, yeah, I think it was a really good thing. Would I do it again? Get me drunk again? You never know. You never know.
No, and I think it was really nice because it really brought the group together. That for sure, definitely. And it was nice to be able to talk about my dad to other people. That was a really nice thing. So yeah.
So you kind of hinted toward it, but do you think working on the project has sort of changed you, or kind of had a positive impact upon you kind of going forward, like as a legacy?
Oh, for me, definitely, because I've done things I never thought I would, and things I am really proud of, that I managed it, and then that I got the opportunity, and that it kind of went well. And so yes, for me, definitely, I would say it had quite a profound impact on me, and my confidence going forward, really, in a way.
And I think it's made me look at the arts and how that is in a different way. Perhaps in the past I would have been quite scathing about the lovey-doveys, but having become one for a short while, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. No, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I do think going forward, like as I say, I do joke that I would only do it if I was drunk again, but I did really quite enjoy it. Perhaps when in my latter years I may end up seeking out more Amdrammy stuff.
God help us.
So okay, so if this project was to run again, would you recommend it to friends or family or anyone that you know to take part?
Really, I would absolutely recommend it. Absolutely, no question whatsoever.
Yeah, I think I would as well. But I think what people would have to know is that there is quite a big commitment to it. So I think you need to know that up front.
It was so worth it, though. It was so worth it, definitely. And yeah, I would recommend it to anybody.
What drew me to the project in the first place was the opportunity to work with people who don't consider themselves artists, who are just coming together to try something new, to be free and open and actually give themselves a chance to learn something new about themselves and create something, which for me is incredible because I get to work a lot with artists, but actually working with people who are just, you know, maybe haven't had as much experience with the arts for a long time, or they're just rediscovering their love for the arts, is actually beautiful, because it kind of reminds me of when I started falling in love with theater, and it was a great gift for me. I wasn't that surprised about my DNA results. I found out that I am part Greek and part Romani traveler, which I kind of expected. I think the family kind of knew about the Greek part, the Romani part maybe a bit less, but everyone had an inkling because I tan really well. And yeah, just my skin color in general led us to believe that it's probably something from a place with a bit more sun that's more used to that. I don't think the DNA results changed how I see myself a lot. I think it's just interesting to find out about the other cultures. I mean, there's a lot of people of Romani descent who live in Romania, and then obviously I've been to Greece quite a lot of times. I really enjoy it. It's a place I could definitely see myself retire to, maybe not live in my prime, but definitely a beautiful place. I think in my older age, I'm probably going to think about taking that 12% and putting it to good use. The project has been fantastic because it's given me a chance to act again, to create, without any strings attached to it, without having to stress myself about it. I get to interact with some beautiful minds, with some people who are really interesting and who give me really nice feedback from a different point they usually receive from artists. So I got to do a bit of clowning, I got to do a bit of singing, which I haven't done in a very long time. It's just been a great experience and something fantastic to do with your Thursday evening. I couldn't think of anything better, really. Yeah, just I think to sum it all up, it just brought me some happiness in my life, and I'm gonna cherish this thing forever, and I wish it went on for longer, really.
First then, so how did you become involved with the project, and what were your kind of reasons for getting involved?
Well, we were volunteering at DRS, weren't we, Derbyshire Refugee Solidarity, when I think you and Paul came in, I think, and you were telling the refugees and asylum seekers about the project, which would have been great if you could have got more involved, but obviously there were things that made that difficult, the fact that they weren't there for long maybe, and maybe they're going to be moved on, and language barriers. But when you were talking about it, then I think it inspired us.
It did, yeah.
Particularly
we thought, we want some of that.
the DNA. I have to admit, the DNA was a real hook. It made us think, oh, it'd be interesting to find out if all the family stories are true. Is it really in our blood or not? Yeah.
And it sounded really interesting, you know, all the aspects that were advertised.
Okay, excellent. So were you surprised then by your DNA results when you kind of got those back?
I got my DNA results back when I was leaving one of the sessions on a Thursday night. And yeah, I was gobsmacked by my results because it seemed I'd come from everywhere. So I think that made you excited, didn't it?
Yeah, and then and then I looked at mine, and well, surprised. I was surprised in that there was no Welsh, because according to a family tree, I had a Welsh great grandfather. I thought there would be Viking because everyone has Viking.
I did.
And I was hoping there might be some Caribbean because I love reggae and stuff, and I'm 91% English, and and then 8% kind of Iberian and 1% Finnish. So so I was surprised, but probably even more disappointed, you know.
I did.
I wasn't
Yeah.
as exotic as I was hoping. You know.
I did tell him I thought that was special, the fact that he could be so English. I
Oh, a
thought was-
thoroughbred.
Yeah.
Have your kind of DNA results sort of maybe changed how you see yourselves at all, or kind of your outlook on anything?
I think the first thing it made me think about was science, because science at school was always, oh, it's physics next, or it's chemistry next. Biology I enjoyed. But actually, scientists must be so creative. And I'd never thought about scientists being creative before, but who thinks of looking at DNA, and who thinks of what that DNA can do, and who thinks it can tell you so much about your history, about your current health, about what could happen to you in the future. It's just mind-blowing. So I think it was significant in that respect, I think. I don't know about.
Yeah, I think it did make me consider more deeply about, you know, who you are, and that relationship between DNA and journeys and family history. I think it probably confirmed, though, that we are who we are by nature of our attitudes and cultures and diversities,
Rather than race,
rather than the kind of scientific DNA strands that composed us. So I didn't suddenly feel like I was 1% finished, although I did welcome that. So it's complex. Did it change how I see myself? Probably because I thought I was more diverse than I am in terms of genetics.
I think the process that we went through was actually probably what made me change the way I view myself and notice things about myself that maybe I hadn't noticed before. No, I mean, I think to be creative, I need an inspiration to be creative, and the project gave that. And also things which have made you who you are. Like, I worked in deaf education for years. And so when an issue came up that was to do with BSL, I reacted because I realized that it was now in my blood. You know, I'd done it, and there were certain ways that I felt about things because of the work that I'd done, and that had never crossed my mind before. So yeah, I think the process itself was probably quite enlightening.
Definitely, and I think probably as enlightening was the sharing of other people's DNA, and listening to other people's stories and reactions to their results was fascinating, and added to that dimension of diversity, but still having commonality in many aspects of our lives.
Yeah, excellent. So you kind of talked about sort of the process. So how was kind of that creative process and working with Paul especially? How kind of was that for you guys?
We really enjoyed it, didn't we? I think when we've talked to people about it, they've noticed our enthusiasm for the things we did. I think the dancing through you, didn't it?
Just a little, but when you say about Paul, but I have to say that it wasn't Paul, it was the Lost Boys. You know, no, seriously, it was both of you, and that dynamic of the two of you. You know, you clearly have that. That's why you're both lost. But yeah, it was great, because great facilitation of all the activities, and encouraging and supporting and giving people the confidence to explore all the variety of, you know, activities, and and you know, kind of personal stories of family and journeys, and it was really really secure, wasn't it? It was
great.
great.
We looked forward to Thursday nights, which we don't normally do it.
No.
We did look forward to it. It was great, and it
other than talking to you tonight, of course, you know.
That's another Thursday night. No, we enjoyed the process. It was interesting, inspiring, creative, funny. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. So it was a great experience.
And I think the way you start with like the concept of DNA, and then weaved all around that, there was so much, like you've already mentioned my inability to dance, that by inference. And there was dance, there was music, there was mask making, there was stage fighting, and you would think, how does that all tie in? And I think that probably was one of the changes in perceptions, was all of those dynamics and creative experiences and writing, which I really enjoyed the writing, obviously. I think you and Paul probably got bored with reading haiku, you know. And you know, and collage. I really enjoyed the kind of collage activities, but all of it, and performance. I think actually how it did change me was more confidence with, you know, I haven't done anything like that.
I can't agree with that.
In, you know, in front of an audience and, you know, rattling away as a crow. I mean,
it was it gave us an enthusiasm, didn't it? And I think
it was inspiring, actually.
It was
creatively inspiring.
I think probably what it left me with anyway was the thought that maybe I should do something else. You know, that there are other things out there which I've just got to go and find to give me that feeling of being creative again. So it was good.
Excellent. Would you recommend the kind of experience, if the project was to run again, would you recommend it to someone else?
I think if the project ran again, then all of the people we've spoken to would carry that message to people to say how good it was. I think you couldn't help. I mean, our kids, they recognized our enthusiasm, didn't they? Well, everybody did.
And family said, "Oh, where do you sign up for this then?" You know, no, genuinely, they really have, and because it had so much variety, you know, creativity, learning, socializing, so much fun as well. You know, it was,
and it never fell flat, really. It kept
infinite variety, wasn't there? But all linked to DNA.
No, it was good.
Very cleverly constructed.
And the caravan at the end was
we
a good way to round
the exhibition.
it off.
We haven't mentioned the exhibition.
It was.
And people were really genuinely engaged with listening, and I think many of them would have liked to have spent longer, but when you're at the Worksworth Festival and there's so many venues, but people did stay in and talked more than watched. Can I say that? Edit that out if that's not quite right. But they did, didn't they? They wanted to hear the stories, which they were. I know they were on the tablets, but
But they also shared things themselves, which was interesting as well. So everybody's got a story. And the idea that we're all travellers is something that will remain with us, I think.
Just passing through.
Just passing through. Hope I'm still here a bit longer.